first speaker is going to take a closer look at what it takes to effectively scale to larger markets. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of our Platinum partner, who we just heard from, Last Mile Solutions. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a very warm welcome for Jacco Van der Burg.
Good morning, everybody. So the great thing I have is that I'm one of the first, so the entire vibrant of the festival of today is still here. And I want to start with some few questions, because just to give me the idea of the perspective of the audience. And that's the amount of time you're already in eMobility. And would you please raise your hand if you feel free to answer my question? Who in the audience is longer than 10 years in eMobility? Thank you very much. 5 years in eMobility. 2 years in eMobility. And who's really novice, 1 year and less? Wow. Thank you very much. And I want to bring you to the first moment where you encounter eMobility. And I want to bring you back to a story of mine. For me, it was the first encounter with an electric vehicle. And it was quite surprising. Can somebody remember the first time being electric? I was a real petrol head. I really loved my cars, my company car. I was driving it all the way. But then the first time electric, it was completely different. And how different? This different. And it sounds a little bit funny, but it was different because of the experience. And the experience basically on the acceleration. And I think that everybody can feel with me that the first time driving electric really was a little bit different. And I want to make the parallel to our market as well. Because I've been in scaling many times. We did a lot of things, but scaling in this business is completely different. As the cars are completely different, also the market is completely different. And it's scaling much, much faster with these types of, well, let's say, images as other markets. And I want to just bring you some insights and the dilemmas and the problems that we encountered or mistakes that we made, just to make sure that we share this knowledge, because this is a very interesting market. And we can only make it much better if we stick together, network as these types of conferences. First, as every story, I begin at the beginning. So if you look at 2009, we only have a couple of stations. And then we went to 2012, 100 stations. It's not that much. But you have to bear in mind, if you build a company which is able to do 100 stations, it's a completely different company if you do 1,000 stations. It's not multiplying by the amount of stations. But then, increasingly, year after year, you see that we now have to embrace the idea of doing millions and millions of stations. And then you need different companies. You have a different perspective on leading these companies. And I just want to, well, give you an idea on how we are doing this and bring you with some insights on that. As Eric already explained, and I don't want to go into too much details, we are a company, we are a software as a solution provider for eMobility. And for us, it's important to be very flexible, because the markets are not really set in stone yet. So it's very important to adapt as soon as possible. And our independence also is very important for us, because we want to work with everybody. We want to be able to make sure that we can help everybody in this market. Just to make sure that you know that we are a serious company, and then I'm finished, and then we'll go to the real stuff. But we actually grow the last couple of years, as Eric mentioned, up to 85,000 stations, active charging stations on our platform. 450 charging tokens, which actually is quite a lot. And we are doing this currently in 22 countries, and we actually passed the 1.6 million transactions. There's still 1.5. This is what scaling is all about, right? You make the presentation, it's 1.5. This morning I get the idea that it was always 1.6. And we, together with our partners, do over 300,000 stations across Europe. And the last button, it's also where I'm very proud of. And it's not because I'm an ISO guy and I want to know. It's because we are scaling and you have to be more mature and all your processes should be audited as well. And that's why I'm pretty proud that for the third time in a row we did the 27001, but also now with all our new processes, the 9001 and 27701 for privacy. If we're talking about scaling, this is our scaling, but I think with all your companies you understand that's why you're here. This business is scaling. This is our scaling. This is our scaling in charge points and in transactions. Transaction for us is meaning people using the system, people using the stations, people using the charging tokens. We now have offices in 4 locations. We started only in Rotterdam. We now have them also in Berlin, here in our office, in Paris, in Krakow, and we're also looking in other places for the end of this year as well. So this is also what scaling is all about. Well, I can say what kind of mistakes that I made, but I want to make it a little bit more positive. I want to make what kind of learnings that we did. And I want to make a parallel with climbing a mountain. And this is actually done many times, but I think this is the appropriate reflection on what we are doing. So if you want to climb a mountain, who already climbed a mountain before? I see just a number of guys. Yes, thank you. There are people climbing mountains. Thank you very much. You can't do this without preparation. Otherwise, it's very dangerous, or you won't reach the top, because there are all circumstances you can't get a grip of. So it's important that you do proper preparation. Preparation in your physique, preparation in your gear, preparations in the way you want to do, preparation in the limits with the weather and stuff like that, but preparation is important. And then for scaling, it's the same. So there are many aspects where you want to control to make sure that before you go scaling, you have all the parts filled in. And I'm just going a little bit faster, because you can understand leadership has to change, it has to be in place. The governance, how you talk to each other, you have to have the money to do it. You have to have the control and the finance part also to assure that you can do this. The strategy, the marketing and sales, I think you can all understand. This is the important part. This is for us sacred. If we are doing this and you want to grow your company, if you want to grow your business, you have to do it all together. You can't grow one part, so you have a very advanced strategy, but you don't have the products to underline it, or you have the sales and marketing that is already there for many, many years, but you don't have the, let's say, operations to fulfill all those things. So it's important to keep the entire operation, the entire elements in line, and this is the most difficult thing, because this is basically the reality. If you go into your company, you can't scale them all at once in the same pace as you're doing right now. So this is where we emphasize the most. Make sure we're completely aligned. Can people relate to this? That's right. You will always have the troubles of, I'm already ready, this department is not ready, what should we do? And this is the alignment is very important. This is what we use. Because it's even more difficult, as I explained, because all the parties are also entwined with each other. If you change something in the governance, it also has a reflection on finance. It also has a reflection on operations. It changes. So you can't change everything at once. And that's why we use the circle, to make sure that everything is done properly and has the connection with the other parts. And as you see, you will grow the further you go. And you have to make sure that everything is in balance. This is what we use. So one of the key learnings, don't jump if you're not sure you're ready to jump and everything is in line. Otherwise, and we did this a couple of times, we thought we were ready, but we weren't. And then eventually you will have a problem. Then the next thing, and I think that's also important, if you just met our founder, Eric, they were with the two of them, but then the team growth. So you see the 4 guys, but then when the team grows, well, they're team members. To make sure that the teams are still in line with each other, with the same vision, requires a totally different setup. And that he knows where to go, or that we know where to go, is very important, but that we take the team with us is even more important, because otherwise why hire a lot of people if they don't know what to do, right? So making sure that you have the connection, that you set up the communication, and that you have the governance, that everybody talks to each other, is really important. Otherwise, a team member will end up in a totally different mountain with great due respect, with a lot of effort, but it's not where he needs to be. So alignment in that part is really important. And the information flow, make sure that you have the appropriate meetings and setups are very important. That's what we do with stand-up meetings, company events, monthly, quarterly review events, to make sure that everybody is in the same way. Yeah, what I'm going to say in this slide, right? This is where you don't see the top if you are at the bottom. And this is where our market gets a lot more interesting. Because 2 years ago, we did not know how the situation of today looked like. So it's basically the fog that you see. So there is a top. We don't know exactly where, but it is somewhere there. But it's going to be completely changed while you're going there. So, well, from a profession, I was used to make 5-year plans. Well, we can throw them into the bin because everything is changing day by day, actually. So we have to bear in mind that 2 years is the max that we do, but also we are now in a spiral that we need to check everything with the 2-year plan. Don't go too fast, but don't go too slow as well. Every decision that you make has to fill in that part. In the beginning, just a small explanation, in the beginning, what you do is you post band-aids. So if there's a problem, we solve it. If there's not a problem, we solve it again. If it's bigger, we take a bigger band-aid, just to make sure you come to that point. But now, really scaling up, that's not possible anymore. You have to solve the problem only once and make sure that it fits for the scaling up. And this is where it's difficult, because then sometimes you have to slow down in order to speed up. And those types of decisions are, let's say, in a management team, very exciting, but also very complex. But every decision you have to make has to make sure that it also fits for the next couple of years. And next couple of years, in our case, is doubling and doubling again. And that's also what we mention, is that also our problems are doubling every month. So 12% growth of every problem every month is really, really ridiculous, but it's something that happens. Then, almost the last thing is that when you hire new people, it's important that you hire professional people. Everybody knows. I talked to a couple of recruiters already. Everybody knows that you have to hire smart people. But then what to do with the smart people is also important, because only having the smart people and not aligning with the smart people, that's difficult. And then from a scaling perspective, so with founders, with people that are used to really building something and now going to a scaling and a little bit more corporate and more processes-minded company, that's where the real magic happens. That's where it's getting more and more complex. Because it's not only your vision that you have to transfer to them, but it's also their knowledge and expertise that you have to grasp from them. And that's where the key is. And we also have some examples, and this is an example that is a little bit, well, into our market. It's Better Place. Who knows Better Place? Somebody already read the book on Better Place? I'm not finished yet, but I have some. Did somebody knew that there was a book? Okay. And there's a book. And there are quite some key learnings, because this was one of the first real big projects in the world, actually. It was an Israeli company, really spending. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of opportunities. But if you now read the book, it was, well, the timing was not right. You can have a debate on that. But there are a lot of people stating in that company, knowing that they were not following the right direction because of their expertise in energy, their expertise in logistics, or their expertise in finance. But still, the company went on the same direction and was not flexible enough to change. And that for us was a key learning that, well, you can hire smart people, it's perfect. But if you don't listen to them and you don't create a culture where everybody can say anything, well, that's pretty difficult, right? I studied aerospace engineering, and for us it's important that everybody can say everything to the captain without being sacked, right? That's important because you want to have all the information, and that's the information we need as well. Because in the example of Better Place, which is a very good example, they were already working in, I think, 6 or 8 countries with an unfinished product, and people knew this, and they still maintain working on the same product. And even the product was not finished yet. It was still not even a minimum viable product. And knowing this, and still as management, going on, burning all that cash, well, I think that's a pity. And that's something that we can learn from this example. So this is basically the culture thing, right? Make sure that everybody can say everything, that the professionals that are in your company also can contribute, and that everything can be said and people will hear. And you have to organize this, because everything is going in such a high pace that you sometimes forget to listen. Because yes, we have to do this, and we have to do that meeting, and we need to do this. So therefore, it's important to organize this. Make sure that there are moments in the week, moments in the month to do this. Well, if these learnings are correctly implemented, well, then there is a path forward. And I totally believe everybody will reach the top, especially when you are here, because this is a fast-growing market. Even when you have a terrible idea, it will grow, right? So everybody will reach the top somehow. And for today, the importance is, how do we do it together? And I would love to debate in our stand with you on how can we do it together. Because we all need to go to more or less the same top. Are we going after each other? Do we make the top a little bit bigger? Do we go in line like this? And these are elements that, from a company perspective, this is nice, and I can explain what we are doing, but we all have to work together. This is a network. This is something that we have to do together. And here I think, well, we have a lot more keynotes today, making sure that we can do this together as well. And I want to invite you to have this discussion with me. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and have a great day today.
Thank you very much for your keynote. Quick reminder, we do encourage you, do use the app to send any of your questions or comments. People at home or in your office, yes, I'm talking to you. You can also participate by sending in your questions and comments using the app. As I keep reminding you, do make sure you are logged into the correct session. Send us your question, and we will forward it in real time to our keynote speaker. While we wait for people to formulate their question for you, maybe I can just ask you, you outlined several very important things to keep in mind when it comes to scaling, but if you really had to just narrow it down to one thing, that if somebody asked you for one single piece of advice for scaling up, what would you tell them?
It's just the most difficult question. Because the basic is that everything is important, but if you have to choose one, I think the most important thing is to hire the right people with the right experience, and possibly also with the scaling. Because the scaling part is something that is really, really interesting and really important.
And when we really try and imagine in the next 10 years, let's say, when mass adoption isn't something we're aspiring to, but has really, really arrived, and this has required so many companies to scale up, what kind of an impact would that have just on the industry as a whole?
Massive impact. Because you see with every scaling aspect, you see the market and also the connections between the different market parties changing a lot. So sometimes you are a competitor, and I think sometimes I woke up and my competitor was my partner. But also the other way around. Sometimes I woke up in the morning and my partner became my competitor. And so these dynamics really change, and to make sure that this is aligned and become more mature really helps us all. And this is the major change you will see, I think, looking from 10 years. The maturity will help us all.
Do we have any comments, maybe from somebody in our audience, or another question? Do you agree?
Or disagree?
Do you disagree? Okay, I think our participants need to have their coffee, but they are available for a chat at your stand. So we do invite you to visit the Last Mile Solutions stand. Thank you so very much, Jacco. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.